Okay, I'm going to show you how to go about making a ball cap on any loom and doing some kind of basic math. I'm going to be doing the example on the 36 peg, but you can do this on any loom with some basic math. I just took a scrap piece of paper to kind of write this down. Because I'm doing the 36, I'm going to explain how to do this, okay? What you want to do is you have 36 pegs here, and you're going to divide the pegs in half, which is 18. Okay, now when you keep that in mind, the first 18 pegs is going to be the front half of your ball cap, okay? Well, we're going to be doing the bill first, and we need to figure out how many pegs we want to take up and everything for the bill. And here's where a little math is involved. Okay, so we have 18 pegs, and we're going to divide it into 3, which is 6. Okay, we're going to take that 6, and we're going to split it in half, which means it's going to be 3 pegs over here and 3 pegs over here. And then we're going to take 12 pegs in the middle, and those 12 pegs are our bill for the ball cap. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to skip those first 3 pegs, and then you're going to cast on those 12. Okay, this is our bill here. All right, now we're going to do a series of wrap and turns. And how you know how many wrap and turns to go down is you've got your 6. You divided it into 3, that 18 into 3, so it's going to be 6. So what you're going to do is you're going to take and wrap and turn until you have 6 pegs with a single loop in between your wrap and turns, okay? And that's how you come up with the point where you get the bill down to a certain section, and then you're going to work it back up and then fold it back. So that's the first section. And what I like to do is write it down. So I'm going to skip 3, ear up on 12, and then skip 3. Okay, and I'm going to wrap and turn until I have 6 single stitches in between, and then work my way back out and then pull back up. Now this is on the 36 peg. If you want an example of, say, the 60 peg, you divide those pegs in half and you get 30. And to get the bill where you need to get, you're going to do 30 divided by 3. Okay, and that'll give you 10. So you split that 10 in half, which means you're going to have 5 empty pegs on each side, and 20 pegs will make up the bill. Now, because it was 10, you take those 20 pegs and you wrap and turn until you have 10 single stitches in between wraps and turns on both sides, and then you're going to work your way back up. That's an example of the 60 peg. Okay, so let me show you how I mean that. So it's skip 3, ear up, cast on 12, and there's 3 on the other end, and then we're going to work our bill down to 6 single stitches. So let me show you how to do that. Okay, so we skipped our 3, and then we're going to ear up all the way over just to get started. Okay, now we're going to start our wrap and turn. So we're going to E-wrap over and stop just before the last peg. So there's our last peg that we've wrapped. Toss all the loops over. Wrap and turn the next peg. E-wrap over, stop just before the last peg. Here's my last peg. Toss the loops over. And we're not going to touch that wrap and turn. Okay, then we're going to go over here and we're going to wrap and turn that next peg. You wrap over, stop just before the last wrap and turn. There's our last wrap and turn. We're going to stop just before it. Toss the bottom loops over. So we're going to wrap and turn. You wrap over until just before the last peg. Last wrap and turn, see? Toss those loops over. Wrap and turn the next peg. You wrap to just before the next wrap and turn. There it is. Toss the loops over. Wrap and turn. You wrap till just before the last wrap and turn. Toss the loops over. Okay, and this will be our last wrap and turn, and you're going to go all the way over to the wrap and turn right here. And you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So this is what I mean. You'll see wrap and turns, okay, on either side, and then you'll see 6 pegs with single stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now if you were working with a 60 peg and we calculated that it would go from 20 to 10, you would have wraps and turns on either side, and you'd have 10 single pegs in here. So that kind of gives you an idea. Now, to work it back out, you're just going to wrap the last peg you just finished with, and then you're going to add in wrap and turn, single wrap and turn at a time. Wrap the peg you just finished with. You wrap over to the next wrap and turn. Wrap the peg you just finished. You wrap over, add in the next wrap and turn. Wrap the peg you just finished with, you wrap over, add in the next wrap and turn. Wrap the peg you just finished, you wrap over, add the last wrap and turn over here. And finish up the bill and add the last wrap and turn. Now you have the option here, you can leave this wide open and add a special board or something to stiffen the bill up more. It's entirely up to you, but I'm going to go ahead and fold it back. So what you want to do is you want to try to find the very end original cast on loop and put them back on. So, which they should be fairly obvious. They're loose like that, like that. Okay. Now we have just completed our first section, okay? And you can see there is our bill, okay? Now we need to figure out the rest of the hat, okay? Now we're just going to E-wrap cast on the rest of the pegs, okay, and then we'll E-wrap back to this point. So you're going to E-wrap cast on those pegs and then E-wrap around and stop at the starting point here. And this will get you started to the next. Now, the reason why we divided that in half, we're going to use that number again. So our number is 18. We want a very small band so that it doesn't roll at the bottom of a basic two peg rib stitch of a knit, purl. Okay, so that doesn't roll. And so I wanted to divide that number by 5, okay? And naturally it's going to be 3 point something, but for me it's closer to 4. So I'm going to round up. And I'm going to do 4 rows of the rib stitch. Okay, we want a total of 18 rows because ball cap doesn't go very far down on the head. We don't want a whole lot of hat at the top. So we're going to do a total of 18 rows. Now, you're going to need to minus the 4 rows it's going to take to do the actual just kind of base there that we just did. Okay, that rib stitch is 4 rows, which means we're going to have 14 more rows to do. And then we're going to do a drawstring cast off. And if you're doing a fine gauge loom, it's going to be a fine gauge cast off, which is going to have 6 more rows to extend that and smooth out the top. I'm going to kind of do something similar on this loom. But again, if you were doing, say, the 60 peg, you'd divide the 30 by 5, and it's 6 rows of a rib stitch, and then 24 rows of a regular E-wrap to equal a total of 30 rows. And then you do the drawstring cast off kind of thing. So that's the basis of how you do the rest of the hat, is you take that half number that you got of the pegs and you divide it by 5 and you round either down or up depending on which it comes closer to. I decided to round up. This works the same for any other area. You round up to wherever it comes closest to. Okay, and that gave me 4 rows, and I minus 4 from that 18, which gives me 14 rows to do after my rib stitch. So I'm going to kind of show you generally what I'm talking about. But first I'm going to show you how to kind of get prepped to start that section. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to do E-wrap, cast on the rest of these empty pegs. Then you're going to E-wrap back to here. This is your starting point. So you're going to just E-wrap all the way around and stop there. Okay, we're going to stop here and toss that loop over. Okay. Okay, and we just got us started. Now here is where we do our 4 rows of rib stitch. It depends on where your math is on any of the other ones. If you're doing a 60 peg, it's 6 rows of a rib stitch, and it's as simple as a E-wrap 1, purl 1, and this is just to keep the bottom from curling. So just E-wrap, purl 1 all the way around. For 4 rows. Okay, so I've got my small ribbon area that'll keep it from curling, my rib stitch here, and then it's time to finish the rest of the hat, which we calculated was 14 rows, so that it equals a total of 18 rows. And if you're doing the 60 peg 1, it ended up being 24 rows after you did the 6 rows of the base rib stitch here. So you do 24 rows. So go ahead and pause the video and do however many rows the actual base of the hat is, and then I'll kind of show you some options of a closure so that it's nice and smooth up top. Okay, I've done my 14 rows, and you can see that should be a total of 18. Now it's time to do the drawstring cast off. This is kind of what it should look like so far, and you'll see the bill there. So I'm going to be switching to a flat knit, and we're going to do probably about 4 rows before we actually draw strings. So you're going to flat knit 2, move over, toss the bottom loop over, move that over. Then you're going to knit 4, then you're going to take that last one you knit, move it back 1, toss it over, move it over. Then you're going to knit 4 again, move that back 1, toss the bottom loop over, move it forward, knit 4, take that last loop, move it back 1 peg, toss the bottom loop over, move that stitch forward, knit 4 more, move that last stitch you knit back 1, toss the bottom loop over, bring it forward 1, knit 4, take that back 1, move forward. Now I would suggest this on the real wide gauges, but on the finer gauges I'll give you a link to how to do that. There'll be more rows involved because you have more stitches involved. Okay, then flat knit those last 2. Now you're going to do a flat knit all the way around on the stitches that are left for a single row. Okay, now we're going to do another decrease. We're going to knit 3. Then we're going to take that last one we knitted, take it back 1, toss the bottom loop over, take it forward. And what you'll see is you've got every other peg with a loop on it. That's the goal on this section, is to get half the stitches, and every other peg will have a stitch on it. So knit 3, move that over, toss the bottom loop over, move it back, knit 3, move that back 1, toss the bottom loop over, move it forward, knit 3, that back 1, toss the bottom loop over, move it forward, all the way around. Every other peg should have a stitch on it when you get back around. Okay, now you're going to just do a flat knit for all the stitches that are left. You may be asking yourself, why do this? The flat knit, in the way that you're doing this, will allow it to stretch out and do a nice slow closure. Okay, now you're going to cut yourself a long tail, and then you're going to send the tail through every other loop. So take off that one, skip that one, go to the next one, send that through, skip the next one, go to the next one. Skip, go to the next one, 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 and then you're going to skip and go way over here to the next one, pull through. We're taking off the last of the stitches. And the last one. Okay. Move that out of the way. Now there's your last one. So what you want to do is you can kind of pull that inner one and then pull the outer one. Okay. And then what you'll do is you'll stretch the stitches so that they flatten out at the top. See? Nice and smooth at the top. And because you've done the flat knit and it stretches out, you barely notice the change. And so there's your cap. What you want to do is you want to shove that in there. What you want to do is you want to take your I always like to have a crochet hook around just because I find it easier, and pull that string inside the hat. Send it through, pull it partially the way through, knot it, cut the extra, and then the simplest way I found to hide this tail is to go through the opposite end of the bill and work my way to the other side, grab that and pull it through, and that hides it. So there you have it. There is you a cap, and it'll stretch out. So there is you a baseball cap kind of thing. And you can feel free to add more stitch work to it, change it up some, but this is basically how you go about making a ball cap. And there you have it. Now you may find that you start running across some odd numbers when you start doing a whole lot of dividing with any other looms you might be working with. If that is the case, if it's a 0.5 or up, round it up. And that means that what'll change on the bill, for instance, if it's not even and you're having to, say, round it up, you're going to make sure that when you're splitting it in the front that it's going to be even, and you want your odd number in the middle, and then you're going to work it down until you have the number that you used collaborated on the outside. And so you're just trying to get it to where it adds up to half the pegs on the loom. We'll try to get a written example of what that turns into. But yeah, this is pretty much the cap and how you can do that on any loom with some basic math.